has carnosine in it, whatever the fuck that is.
And no artificial colors.
What is that even? Who gives a crap?
That's bullshit.
Who cares? There's artificial something in there.
Welcome to the show. We're going to talk about Star Wars: The Book of Boba Fett, Episode 7, or Chapter 7.
My notes for this one.
7 is a weird episode number
to end on.
Yeah,
I agree.
It is.
Like not 6, even though it had 3 episodes of plot.
Did you notice how I was messed up and I thought
that this show was going to be good?
Rob, take it away.
You know what? I have to. So, a brief synopsis about this, honestly, is that Cobb Vanth and Boba Fett and the team are holed up in the mayor's stronghold. They decide, hey, let's.
Is that who the weird guy was?
Yeah. No. The guy, the Twilight guy. That was like the mayor's.
It wasn't the mayor's stronghold. I thought it was the casino.
I'm sorry. That's right. It was
it blew up.
Yep. The what's left casino. They all decide to break up because the guys from Freetown are not showing up. They think they are, then they aren't. And then eventually a whole bunch of fighting happens, and then
for some reason
Boba Fett rides a Rancor, which we all knew was happening because they introduced that Rancor before.
They set it up for 5 minutes.
And then Cad Bane.
So excited.
You know what? I'll read my. So basically, the show ends. The show ends with Boba Fett stabs Cad Bane with a stick that comes out of nowhere because he didn't have it the rest of the show.
Yeah, he was hiding it up his ass.
And then he says, "Oh, okay, well, we're exactly where we started." So here's what I had to say. And what I did like was I was watching the show. It was about, I think I woke up super early, like 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was just watching it. And then I paused the TV and literally said this in one long ramble to my phone. The mayor of Mos Espa says, when will this all be over? And I can feel where he's coming from. The more I watch Marvel and Star Wars, I realize that what I like about Marvel and Star Wars is gone and replaced by something I don't care for. Specifically, these massive series arcing, every character included storylines that will never end and will sap everything they can from nostalgia and confusion over where the story will go, but it will never, ever end. The days of a single closed loop of a story are done, and that makes me sad. Nobody dies, nobody's at risk, because we all know there are multiple seasons to continue this, so there are no stakes. You're effectively just watching a continuing saga of shooting, fighting, and pretending that something's at risk. And that's kind of exactly... And I love Star Wars, but the more I'm watching this, the more I'm like,
nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, the show goes nowhere. I love watching it, but I hate that it goes nowhere.
How about the fact that, like, you know, even as a non-fan, Cad Bane shows up and I'm like, oh, this guy's important. And then even by the second episode he appears, which happens to be the last episode, I'm like, this guy would have made a great villain if he was there for more than 6 seconds.
It's not the last episode. That's the whole thing. It's a continual novel. Like and I know that's what
even though it's a mini-series spin-off.
I get it.
That by all rights should be self-contained.
I know your point of view is that this is just a quick little add-on until they get the next Mandalorian. I get your point of view.
Which is taking them a long time.
To me, I feel like they're making this long book with chapters, and this happens to be one of the chapters that are built to this long... I don't know what their crescendo is.
Episode 9.
But I like to speak on what I think is the casual person that's watching that's not huge into Star Wars, because I'm not. Like,
you think anybody
Star Wars is okay to me. Like, I'm not a fan of the movies. They don't do much for me, even though I'm a huge sci-fi guy. I like more gritty or
Star Wars more fantasy than sci-fi.
Marvel. But I've really been into the Boba Fett thing. I've really been into the Mandalorian thing. Like, I've been into these 2 series and I'm enjoying it, and this episode was exciting to me.
What did you like most about this show?
In general? Like
that because this is the finale. Yeah.
Oh, I just like the storytelling. I think there's good storytelling in it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Really? Are you guys fucking high? What's in this carnosine?
There's great storytelling to it. The problem is it's meandering. It's taking too long. And
It
maybe
almost
that's
sounds
because
like the good
it's a TV
storytelling
show, that's
is
why.
bad storytelling.
it would be good storytelling because I guess you know what the best way to think of it is when you look at Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is a massive fucking story, and this new Rings of Power show, I don't give a shit how this show does because it's
looks okay.
pointless. But when you look at those original 3 books or 6 books technically, it's a closed loop of a story, and I love that. Right, it's a massive world, but it's a singular story. This is what I want. I wanted it to be a singular story. I want it to be Boba Fett rises to the top of a crime family, and maybe it will. But I just felt like this whole season, I'm like, I want it to get there. So I do enjoy it. It needs to get there
Your
faster.
issue there is that this is basically the movie way of working it, but then extending it. So if you're taking, like, say, I know you're not getting your end point that you want, but aside from that, they're going with that circle pattern for a movie, like the what is it, storyline,
or I know what you're talking about.
Whatever it is,
A loop?
yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
but
loop,
they have a loop that they go in.
What's this coming from?
Anyway,
It's the ring. I think you're talking about the ring theory that someone tried to pitch
Yeah,
about
it's
Star Wars.
something
Oh
that.
yeah, but that
they
was
do it
made.
for Marvel, but they're doing it for Star Wars as well now.
But that was made. The ring theory came from Star Wars 1 through 6.
I believe they were saying
It got famous from Star Wars 1 through 6. The guy who made it up, because it's complete bullshit, tried to argue that Star Wars 1 to 6 is the best usage of it. But the ideology is that it's been around in storytelling since the start of saga storytelling began.
Marvel has been doing it hardcore in their movies. But anyway, they're doing that, but instead of doing it for 1 2-hour thing, they're doing it for, what is it, 7 to 8 hours per series, whichever. So I think that's leading towards your thought process of it's like too long. It has these gaps of boring stuff.
But what does
and I get that.
What does it lead to? Like, what's the ring? Because it's like there's an idea of a loop that it's leading towards something. What's
It
this
leads
supposed
to
to
the
be?
beginning.
The beginning of what? Like, is the beginning episode
They
1?
They have like
Episode 4?
I forgot how they put it. Like it go. Oh, not.
Well, no, this
I'm
is
not thinking
long after
specifics.
episode 4. This is after episode 6.
Yeah.
But no, I think my problem is I like the idea
Yeah.
of the story and the character and stuff. I don't like bringing in every goddamn character under the sun. I do not like that at all.
Luke Skywalker could have been totally absent from this.
Yeah, the Luke Skywalker,
If
the
they did-
Mandalorian, and Grogu should not have existed in this show. I like.
Yeah, they didn't add anything.
Because the Mandalorian should have showed up and go, "Oh, I owe Boba Fett a favor." That's all you need. You know what I mean? He doesn't need to have this whole fucking backstory as to why he's showing up and him having the dark
Isn't it
saber.
kind of inappropriate, do you think, Phil, for them to complete such an important character arc for Grogu on another show about Boba Fett?
I
I
think
thought
that.
that was just a
I think
payoff
that
for the
supports-
casual fan, so that they could.
But it supports
Get
your
more.
theory of this is like chapters of a book where you've got different characters flourish throughout the entire book that all come together into one big story.
On that thought process, do you think perhaps they will do a Grogu series at
I
this
hope
point?
not,
No.
man.
Or a
I
cartoon
hope not.
or something?
No, I think and this is what's a problem to me, is that a lot of times when somebody appears on another show, and the Hulk is a good example, and it's not just because of rights with Universal, but it's because our audience is, at least in terms of traditional movie making, not in terms of the comic books, because he's a good character, but in terms of movie making, does not support well on their own, at least as we've seen it. So they're kind of like a side character. And the problem is that the
I
Mandalorian,
disagree.
we know for 2 seasons, can exist on their own. So to have them on another show, the amount that they're in feels like either the show that they're on cannot support itself, which I think is kind of shown clear, or that they themselves are not interesting on their own.
I don't think that's the case at all. I think they just want those cameos so that they have like
A reason to watch.
They're playing to the fan, the Star
Yeah.
Wars fan who wants to see the cameos, just like in Marvel.
Does it play to
Marvel
you?
works.
Does it play to you, Phil?
It plays to me.
Yeah.
Even though I don't know these people, it's cool that I can go and look and go, oh, now I know this person. Where else is it going to pop up?
I
How is
just
it gonna pop up later?
the more I watch it, and the more I think back to like the original trilogy, which was a closed loop, I'm like, I like the idea of a closed loop, and it's not coming from Star Wars. It's coming for me from Marvel. It's like I hate this over, and it's not that I hate it, but I'm tired of it. It's like you're running a fucking marathon, and they're still like, oh, you know what? You're just done this marathon. You know what? You could go this direction or this direction, and also there's this guy who was on your marathon. I'm like,
It never ends.
yeah, it's just unending.
These types of series are creating new fans?
No.
I think they are, but they're creating guys like me who have kids or who have friends who might not know about Star Wars. It's, again, that whole Disney ideology of throw everything at the fucking wall, see what sticks, and let's go with that. So I go, you know what I really like? Man, I like how Cad Bane showed up. Cad Bane! I remember Cad Bane. And you know what I mean? That's how it gets people in.
You know what I think? I think that...
Go
hi,
away,
doggy.
Zelda.
I think that Episode 7 brought in new fans. The Mandalorian brought in new fans. And the Clone Wars brought in new fans. I do not think that the
Bad Bunch did not.
The
Kids.
the Bad Batch did not. Maybe Star Wars Rebels because it was on a different network for a while.
I think Rebels brought in, out of all the stuff you mentioned, I think Rebels actually brought in the most.
But yeah, that's the thing, is that to me, Book of Boba Fett, The Last Jedi even, you could argue, there's an argument for Last Jedi bringing in new fans because it's like different than all the other ones. But Rise of Skywalker,
Any of the big Star Wars
Rise of
movies are gonna bring in
Skywalker,
fans.
Book of Boba Fett, and Solo of Star Wars story
Solo, yeah.
are strictly for the fans affair. That I think when you go to that base, which is kind of like the J.J. Abrams playbook setup, that it's diminishing returns. Like, they keep going back to that well. I don't think there's enough new being created here. There's nothing new on this series at all.
Star Wars is also always going to have...
Is there a single original character on the Book of Boba Fett?
Oh, yeah. Fennec Shand and Cobb
Fennec
Vanth.
Shand was on, and Cobb Vanth were on The Mandalorian, though.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. Good point. But I guess...
Cad Bane, even, like, when he
Cad
showed
Bane's
up...
from Rebels.
I know,
What
and
about
he
this
showed up...
new robot girl. She's not a robot, but...
What? I have no idea who
the kids that are...
Oh, what do they call them? Like the...
Electro Kids or something?
Something like
I
that.
don't know.
Oh,
But
the
you know what, though?
gang?
Star Wars is always going to be... The same as Star Trek and fucking Lord of the Rings. They're never going to make it please everybody, and they shouldn't, right? That's the whole reason.
But they can just make good cinema.
You
Like,
can't-
what they're
you can't
making
just
is...
say they can make good stuff. Like, you gotta
They're
throw
fully
things at the
capable.
wall to find out.
But
But
when we
I-
look at Game of Thrones
But I
or
like
something,
the idea of trying different shit. That's great. And I love that, like, The Mandalorian was a huge try. It was a massive risk.
and it paid off.
And it paid off. The problem with Book of Boba Fett is they were like, okay, we're going to be a little risky, but we're going to be risky with
What's
people
the-
that are already set up.
What's the riskiest move they made? Introducing this
The
jazz
riskiest
group?
move is that everybody thinks Boba Fett is a huge badass, and he's not.
That-
which is what I originally liked about the show. But they're just taking too long to get
me,
there.
the crime of this show was that they made Boba Fett a character who has so much history behind him, invented or not, who's revered, who's known, like one of the best known Star Wars characters, one of the most iconic looking, even though he does nothing.
That's why they chose
They
him.
made him inherently less interesting than the Mandalorian.
Maybe. My problem with Boba Fett is I have not been a Boba Fett fan since the start. Boba Fett, I never knew why Boba Fett got all the accolades he did. It makes no sense.
Because
Looks
in the
cool.
80s, you
But
had
it was-
nothing.
That's what it was. It was
It
because
looks cool.
everybody was like, Boba Fett's so fucking cool. He's so fucking cool. It's the same people that think what's
He
cool
got
about
taken
Darth
out by
Vader
a blinded Han Solo.
is because Darth Vader's so fucking hard. And Darth
Do you
Vader's
think
so
Darth
fucking
Vader
wicked.
is badass? Because I never did.
Everybody, but then you watch
He
fucking
looks
Rogue
badass.
One, and the end of Rogue One. I remember when I was watching Rogue One in the theater. Everybody is just coming in their pants over that Darth Vader scene. I'm like,
Yeah.
this. Why is this here? It's so
because-
fucking stupid.
To me, it's kind of like the same thing of Agent Paloma, Anna de Armas, and No Time to Die, where it's like the person who signed on, the creator. In the Star Wars case, it's Gareth Edwards, who's, you can tell watching Monsters earlier, is that he had this idea for this one scene, for this one character. That's
I think-
completely separate
I
from
don't
the plot.
think any of that was Gareth Edwards.
And-
that was all Lucasfilm. Because
Yeah.
they were like, dude, nobody's going to buy your movie. We need more Star
Darth
Wars.
Vader. Yeah.
Because Rogue One, there's so much of Rogue One that's effectively Star Wars porn. Same as Book of Boba Fett.
there's
There's
a
so
lot
much
of-
of it that's Star Wars porn.
But there's a couple of
This
things.
episode, in particular,
Yeah, was
was Star Wars porn.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. I because to me, they want to remind you of these people in these original movies that you like, but take them in this new direction. Then I'm like, I don't like this massive fucking sprawling world you're putting them into. I like them in their little contained
Do you think
environments.
Obi-Wan is probably going to be better? I hope to God so.
I have a
no.
bad feeling that Obi-Wan is going to be
Was
a bit
Obi-Wan
like this.
in the chamber at the end, or was that someone else?
No,
What chamber?
Obi-Wan is dead.
Who was in the what's it called, the water?
The back chamber, Cobb
Yeah.
Vanth.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
What?
Yeah,
It's Cobb Vanth. Yeah.
Timothy
It
Olyphant.
should have been Cad Bane because that sets up a second season.
But
where
why
Cad
would
Bane,
you? Why would you put the bad guy in that?
Because now because him and Boba Fett have worked before. He's taught Boba Fett a lot of shit. Now Cad Bane owes Boba Fett.
That's what I was
That's a
expecting.
cool
this is,
setup.
but that's the problem for me is like, okay, I didn't watch any of the other spin-off. I've watched all the movies and stuff, and you get that they have met before.
Yep.
And I was thinking kind of like a Qui-Gon Jinn, Count Dooku kind of scenario.
Mhm.
But beyond that, I didn't like know, and I liked how they had it vague, and then to find out that it's like, oh no, they actually do have a whole written down history and stuff like that.
Yeah, Cobb Vanth's storyline is done. They should have had
He
him
never,
Cad Bane.
but he never was a character that they wanted to develop.
But his part in this story in the Star Wars
And that's the thing, is that
is effectively
I
done.
love Timothy. I love
No,
Timothy.
They're gonna give him a prequel.
Oh,
But I
fuck.
loved.
Guaranteed.
But that's what I mean. This
And
is
I
what
love
I hate.
Timothy.
That's why
I love
they threw
Timothy
it.
Oliphant. But if you're gonna use him to be killed, have him stay dead. I know nobody
just-
stays dead in sci-fi.
Nobody stays dead in Marvel or Star Wars anymore.
sci-fi
and
in
that's
general.
what sucks about
and
it.
that's
According-
because the audience has said that's what they want.
Yeah.
No, that's
No,
what.
that's a
no,
good-
that's what the
No.
producers are telling us we want.
No, because it's come from like a long lineage of
The same
fan
people from the
wanting these
people.
people back
from
and
the-
going, "Oh my God, it's that person again."
Yeah.
I think that's so cynical. It's like from the people who brought you the Snyder cut. It's just like
No, I think Phil's right on the money because you watch Last Jedi and you're like, wow, Last Jedi, oh, this is great. Luke Skywalker's lightsabers. Like you see people get excited, and then you watch Last
But
Jedi, you're
people
like, this
were-
fucking sucks.
But people hated the Last Jedi. So how does that?
As they should have.
That was that was the one where they showed it in the trailer, right? They were like showing that Luke Skywalker's in the. I can't speak. Like Skywalker's in the trailer. They were doing this whole thing. They were like doing that spoiler, and then people were upset. The hardcore fans.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
But
that's
I'll
it
never,
right there.
I'll never say that Last Jedi wasn't inventive. He was trying something new.
I found it
Star Wars.
reductive.
Star Wars is not where you try new stuff.
The
Star Wars is where you keep on doing the same shit over
well,
and
I
over
always
and
think
over
of
again.
what J.J. Abrams said, where it's like, I'm all for creative freedom, but nobody goes to Star Wars to be told this thing isn't important.
Yep.
The
Or this guy that you believed the whole time. Nah, he fucking hates all this now.
I maintain that like it's studio ownership issue,
No,
not a
that
creative
was-
issue.
That was all. Last Jedi was all Ryan Johnson.
Oh, I know.
How they gave that guy complete creative control is a lesson for everyone coming after. Even
But-
though,
but
say
you
you're
don't
hiring
think-
Chloe Zhao and you're hiring
So,
Gareth Edwards, you're hiring
Rob,
these people.
You don't think that was just a mistake of or a lack of leadership from Lucasfilm?
No, I think it absolutely was.
Then-
but it's
then-
a lesson for everybody that
And
comes
don't
after.
you think then if it is their mistake,
Hence
that
why Phil Lord and Chris Miller get kicked off the Solo thing
Yeah.
to bring in a regular white guy who they know can do it the tepid way that Solo needs to be.
But then wouldn't you say that it's like a failure at the administrative level that they let that happen? Because any competent movie studio wouldn't have like, you can't kill off our big bad.
Mhm.
And they just had full faith because they had just such a hands-off.
Yeah, but that's
speeder
exactly what I
approach.
said. They were like, you know what? We're gonna make this filmmaker's movie. Then they were like, holy shit, was that
Which
ever the
is-
fucking wrong
Which
idea?
is just why it sucked. Don't you think?
I don't think it sucked. I think it was just wrong for Star Wars. So, as a Star Wars movie, it sucked.
So if
But
you were,
as a movie
so
by
if you were to
itself-
lay blame at the entire series of just the trilogy of films, would you lay
Which
it at
trilogy? The new one?
Yeah, the sequel trilogy.
Eh.
Would you lay it at Ryan Johnson or would you lay it at like Bob Iger, the
No,
Disney executive?
Ryan Johnson.
Really?
Yeah.
So you'd lay it at the creative, and I probably hate The Last Jedi more than you do, but I think that like even after The Last Jedi, I and a lot of people were like, okay, but the next movie could make up for it or create like a synthesis of what
For
it's
me, the end of Last Jedi, I was like, where do you go from here? Luke
Yeah, yeah.
Skywalker's dead.
And
What the
don't-
fuck do you do?
So don't you think it should have been like 1, 2 J.J. Abrams and 3 Ryan Johnson? Because Ryan Johnson would have been.
What
He
they
was
should have
ready
done,
to burn it all down.
What they should
midway
have
through.
done is what they're now doing, which is smart. They're like, okay, we cannot fucking start before we know the ending. We've got to know the ending first. Because that's what they did. They set up Force Awakens. The Force Awakens is just supposed to ask a bunch of questions. Great. And then Last Jedi is supposed to put them at their most perilous place, keep the questions going, have one great big reveal at the end. Great. Then we get to Rise of Skywalker. Ray Skywalker answers all of our questions, closes the loop, we're done. Instead, what they did was, here's a whole bunch of questions. Fuck those questions. I'm killing everybody. All your questions are answered. We don't need to continue if we don't want to. And Rise of Skywalker's like, what the fuck do we do?
Yeah.
You know? And
so
it
what's
feels
next
like
for Star Wars? Like, we have another season of The Mandalorian. We have Obi-Wan. We
that's
have that Rogue
why I
Squadron.
like this. It feels like Phil's talking about, we've got this huge magnum opus that they're leaning towards and moving towards. Yeah. They're just, for me, in my opinion, moving way too slow.
But they say that it's going to be that they're going to make another trilogy that Rian Johnson is going to work.
I don't buy that at all,
this
to be
is
honest.
just like the Marvel phases.
Maybe.
I think they're doing the phase thing
I think they're
with the TV shows.
In the style of DC doing it, though, is basically it, because they can't find their ass from their elbow.
I think they're doing it in the style of Marvel. I think
people have tried that.
Marvel over and over.
Yeah.
Again. Like,
that's why I don't like it, because
it
feels like fucking Marvel.
Yeah,
and it just bothers me.
And I like it.
Yeah.
Which makes sense that I love this episode, because it's just giving me. I love this battle. There was a lot of issues, I noticed a lot of acting issues, a lot of CG issues, a lot
costume issues.
Exactly. I wish it was more polished and thought of.
There's no reason it shouldn't be.
See, I kind of like the ugly look of Rogue One. That was my favorite part of Rogue One. Is how
Rogue
ugly
One to me
looked.
was beautiful with the palm trees and stuff.
Yeah,
to me,
great.
I saw the funniest.
I didn't like
the funniest tweet.
I didn't like that whole area.
I thought that was great. They're like, imagine these actors are like, oh, okay, we're gonna go shoot Star Wars. Oh, we gotta shoot in Hawaii. Oh, what's that? We're running over budget. We've got to go do some reshoots. Great, I want to go back to
you
Hawaii.
I hated the end.
You guys don't think that Greg Fraser's work in Rogue One is super beautiful?
I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, because you said ugly.
No, I like the
the grittiness of it.
The grittiness. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
When you go and you look at these stormtroopers going around, what's left of Jeddah that they're on. Everything's grimy.
My favorite, because I thought you guys were talking about in terms of film aesthetic, because my favorite tweet about this whole series was that The Mandalorian is famously not a very good looking show. Mm-hmm. This tweet says. But the Book of Boba Fett makes it look like fucking Barry Lyndon by comparison. So it's just kind of like...
That's what I like in Book of Boba Fett. I like the look of it.
But it everything that it does right or wrong doesn't feel like it was done on purpose. It feels like it was either a compromise or a mistake or a rush job.
I can see your point of that, and that's exactly what I was just stating in a way. It does seem like that. You're right. But if you excuse them for that, aside from that, it's fun. It's fun to watch.
It's a very well done show, but the only thing I will say, and this will be my last point on it, it's not my Star Wars. I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, where this is bringing a bunch of new fans, and that's great, because that's what I love about Star Wars. It's going to live for fucking ever because of stuff like this. But my Star Wars was those first 3 movies, to a lesser degree the prequels. You know what I mean? That's my Star Wars.
I'm hoping you get your Star Wars in the movies that they release going forward.
Well, that's what I want to ask. Is that
I don't buy that at all.
Rob, what's your favorite Star Wars movie?
Empire, same as everybody.
What's it's interesting for me. I'd like to think that I'm ahead of the curve, because I feel like I was one of the first prequel fans. Mm-hmm. Of course, because I was 12 when Episode 3 came out. Episode 3 is the one that I like. It has the most stars and the most wars. And then when I decide to rewatch, and then I decide to watch the originals. Oh. And I remember really liking, even before I saw the prequels, the first Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And I really liked it. And then I watched Empire Strikes Back. It was probably the first time that I watched it after Star Wars. I'm like, oh, this is the best. This is just good. I'm more invested in stuff. And then when I most recently rewatched them in preparation for one of the new releases, I went back and I'm like, you know what? 5 doesn't really have a complete story. I rewatched it after The Last Jedi.
This is the argument we had on
4 in terms of screenplay and structure is really the best film. So I like 3 and 4, and 7 is well done. My question is, regardless of what your favorite is, you just dislike every single Star Wars, correct?
Not dislike.
What's your favorite?
None of them really impact me
Well, that's-
enough to have a
so-
favorite.
so here's my thing.
I know.
Out of all 9 of them?
As good as
Yeah,
Star
really,
Wars
yeah,
is,
wow.
It's just to me they're casual viewing.
because to me, Star Wars, because here's the thing, and I think about it a lot, is that there's only really, in my opinion, in terms of good movies, there's 3, there's 4, and there's 7. For me, I know 5 is good in a lot of ways, and it's risky and a great twist and stuff. But I think my question is this: do you think it is possible, with all the facilities that they have, to make a better Star Wars movie?
It's a good question.
I think that they can. I just don't think that they have the. They don't have. They're not looking to make a better.
My
movie.
question
Also,
is,
They're looking to
whose-
make content.
Whose point of view? Like,
But that's the thing.
do you,
I-
do you go after the casual fan? Do you go after the hardcore?
That's why
fan
Just-
base?
what
the
about
idea,
just- let's-
the idea of a
either
movie
one.
of the Knights of the
No,
Old
you
Republic.
can't say either one because the fact of the like I know you can, but if you say let's go after the casual, you got Rob's gonna hate it, and the casual's gonna want the Marvel-esque type movie.
But
You're gonna
what if
get
it's not
Shang-Chi.
necessarily Marvel-esque? Like,
But you know what's
why
funny?
are you aligning
is
yourself with brands?
You'll
though?
make it. They'll make it for the casual viewer. And this is the great thing about Star Wars is the people that fucking hate. It's like Howard Stern fans. Guys like me will be like, "This is fucking terrible. I've seen it 45 times, and I own it on DVD and Blu-ray and streaming and everything, and I own all the figures from it, but I hate it." Like, that's this built-in audience that Star Wars has. Star Wars fans are such toxic people, and I say that because I am one of them. Their fan base can be so fucking toxic where they hate it, but they'll watch it 1,000 fucking times.
I have a ridiculous theory that I want to come true. Okay.
We'll end the show with that.
Okay, so back in 1983, when Return of the Jedi was being made, as we all know, George Lucas was having a fight with the Directors Guild of America, which shut him off.
No, he got kicked out in after
Early, but-
New Hope.
Yeah. So, and he had already hired Irvin Kershner, right? Or had Irvin Kershner.
And the way he got Irvin Kershner was Kershner was his film teacher.
Yeah.
So Kershner had not effectively retired.
Yeah.
But he had because he was doing a teaching job. That's how he was allowed to get him.
So he had to choose Richard Marquand. We all know who his original choice was,
Oh my
right?
God.
Though.
Back to the point.
You know, we're getting to the point. You know who his original choice was, though? Who was it?
David Lynch.
Well, and David Lynch had like no interest in it. But you know who George Lucas, of course, now says he wanted? Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
But Steven Spielberg was
Yep.
a member of the Directors Guild. My thing is
That's
this
right.
crazy idea, okay? Let's say,
West Side Story meets Star Wars. Let's do it.
yes, West Side
I'm a
Story.
Jedi.
West Side Story is a movie that people thought it's won 10 Oscars, nobody can improve. And Steven Spielberg goes and improves on it, by all means.
I like
Let's
your
say this.
thinking,
Let
yeah.
me float you this theory.
Okay, go for it.
It has 7 Academy Award nominations. By AV Club just ranked it #1 on the setting of all the best picture movies.
Yep.
It's also a crowd pleaser.
Yep.
Spielberg, known his whole career for mending the crowd pleaser with the Academy Award winning
That's right.
movie.
Nothing brings an audience together like Schindler's List.
Super 8.
So let me say this.
Super 8 wasn't Spielberg. Oh no, he produced it.
J.J.
That's right,
Abrams, he
produced
produced it. Let me float you this, okay? West Side Story wins Best Picture. Disney hires him to direct a Star Wars movie.
I'm sure they would.
Would you do
love
it?
That. I'm sure they've.
I
floated
would love it.
before.
My only problem with this is I'm worried to be Ready Player One with Star Wars. I don't want to see
I
that.
get that, but because there's a clear greater affection and respect for the material, I believe, with his connections to it. I think that George Lucas would want to do it. That I think it is particularly more suited to his talent. He himself said about Ready Player One that he did not want to do it, but he was willing to do it for his skill set
Right.
because of a pile of money. The script was sort of there, but he was handicapped by it being an 80s setting, which he's a 60s kid. He didn't want to do. So that was clear. Assuming that he was on board for it and would do it, do you think that it's possible that it could happen and that he would agree to it? I'd say yes, because after The Fabelmans, he'll need that, one for you from the studio
Before
job
you
to
answer,
do.
I want to posit my own thing on top of this.
Fine.
Do you think that if they hired Spielberg and said, do what you want, do you not think the corporate side would not want to stick their fingers in it and go, you need to put in all these little plays to the other things?
So here's
Throw in Grogu.
So,
Throw in...
well, here's the thing, and this is why I say Steven Spielberg has proven, and they proved it with his executive producing on Back to the Future. The reason he earned that credit was because Spielberg is not only a great filmmaker, but he is willing to play the game. You never hear about Steven Spielberg wanted this, but the studio wouldn't let him have it. You do hear that, for example, in Ready Player One, he wanted the nightclub scene, and the studio said, no, it's too expensive, and he said, I'm doing it anyway, and they figured out a way. You never hear about Steven Spielberg saying, oh, my director's cut was never done. He's the perfect one who can both play the game with the studios, but also make a creative compromise. Martin Scorsese doesn't get credit for it in the same way, but he actually sort of does it too. He's willing to make compromises and play the game. And Ridley Scott is sort of the same way. So even though I wouldn't mind a Ridley Scott directed Star Wars, that'd be hilarious and awesome. But Steven Spielberg, I think, could do it, and I think whatever things that he had, like Kathleen Kennedy, who's the head of Star Wars, did you know was Steven Spielberg's assistant?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know these
things. He was Steven Spielberg's assistant, and then she got promoted to that. George Lucas is his best friend. There's nobody who's, he had trouble getting the Star Wars stuff in Ready Player One because they were protective of it at the time. I don't think Bob Iger had a
strong... They're very less protective of it now.
Yeah.
Free guy.
Yeah. So, but that was because that was post-handover. Warner Brothers is doing that, and then Free Guy is by Fox, which is then owned by Disney. So that's why it makes sense. My thing is this. I don't think, because he didn't do his first Disney movie until the BFG, that...
Oh, fuck.
And Bob Iger, who's the king of name-dropping, and he's great, and he's a great businessman, but he never once mentions Spielberg. He mentions Lucas, and he mentions having difficulties with Lucas selling Star Wars and stuff. That was a really tough sell.
Well, selling Lucasfilm.
Now that Bob Iger is effectively retired, Kathleen Kennedy is in charge, who's Spielberg's assistant. West Side Story is up for a bunch of nominations. Steven Spielberg is going to keep wanting to fund whatever real project he is, and he can do these action movies.
Marvel isn't going to get him because that wouldn't work.
Yeah. He's like Scorsese. He fucking hates all that shit.
Because Kevin Feige is the architect there. Kevin Feige is great at his job. He doesn't need anybody. He's shown that he can sub in basically anybody and get his stuff done. So here's my thing.
Eventually,
West Side Story.
Get to the fucking point.
Is a financial bomb, but it wins Best Picture for Disney. It's like the first thing Disney has won Best Picture for in God knows how long. To sweeten the deal and to capitalize on this success, they say, okay, how do we keep an asset like Spielberg with the company? Let's have him direct, give him a boatload of money to do Star Wars, which George Lucas wanted. He got the fulfilling narrative there. Have him do a Star Wars movie. I think he could do it.
I think the only way you get him on board is if you say, this much money, and you get to do a saga. You get to do 3.
I don't think Spielberg would want to do more than one.
I don't think he would do it because he would see it as a betrayal to George Lucas.
I don't think George Lucas would see it as a betrayal. I think
Spielberg would see it as a betrayal of Lucas.
Is George Lucas still alive?
Yes, he is. He's just retired.
He could give his blessing.
But George Lucas visited the set of The Mandalorian. He's friends with Robert Rodriguez. He's friendly. Kathleen Kennedy, again, headed the studio.
I think these guys have been best friends since film school.
What if they teamed up?
Ron Howard, you guys, came in to fix Solo because he was,
Ron Howard is a fucking yes man.
You mean the porn star?
But,
yes. Ron Howard, the porn star. Ron Jeremy. I was like, Ron Howard, the porn
star. But it's like him.
No, but I don't think, so for me, I don't think Spielberg would do it because he wouldn't betray that with George Lucas. I think he would say no. It could be as much money. I'm one of the only 3 billionaire directors. There's Lucas, Spielberg, and now Peter Jackson. If you were to choose someone to make a Star Wars movie, I would choose something like Peter Jackson.
But I don't think Peter Jackson could get that off the ground because Spielberg was able to get Tintin off the ground and
Jackson. Him and Jackson.
And Jackson is still supposed to do his part, and he just hasn't done it.
I think I'd prefer to see it by Jackson.
I don't think Jackson can get it done.
Spielberg.
Look at the Hobbit movies.
Anything good to say about Jackson?
Well, that's the thing is that Jackson couldn't get the Hobbit off the ground for like 10 years. Guillermo del Toro left.
Fuck, a Guillermo del Toro Star Wars movie. That would be fucking fun.
I don't think he could ever get it done.
For that.
Yeah.
But no, yeah.
What about Zemeckis?
Zemeckis is good, but I think Zemeckis relies too heavily on mocap.
Yeah, but that's perfect for Star Wars.
What if you got George Lucas?
Yeah, I don't want George
I've
Lucas.
heard a lot about that. Where I can't remember what they were talking about. They were talking about some like one of the miniseries of things, like to bring George Lucas back to do some pickup stuff. I'm like, that'd be funny.
He wouldn't want to do just a small part.
I don't think. Yeah, he'd want to come back and do Star Wars. What's good about George Lucas and what's great about George Lucas is
he's in his 80s.
If they did it all at once.
But with Lucas, he has a vision for Star Wars.
Yeah.
The problem is his vision is not fiscally dependable.
And it's all
right?
well, I think it is. Like you can say that because of what
He's
he
talking
did.
about he wanted the trilogy to be about the midichlorians, where they go inside of the cell and learn about how the midichlorians used to learn the Force. Nobody would fucking want to see. That's a fantastic
So he
voyage.
basically wants to explain himself.
But like
He wants to do fucking what's that stupid show with that lady that has a magic bus and goes inside your body?
Magic School Bus.
Magic School Bus.
yeah, but like
With
with-
Jedi.
You know that magic
the
bus?
prequels are full of
Was it a
like
school
interesting ideas, you guys, and they came up with like it opens with like a trade dispute. So the fact
wasn't that
the fact
exciting?
that made so much money, and the second one even made so much money after that was terrible. And the third one somehow made up for it because he actually listened to the fans, but kind of got no credit for it, for putting more action and a more coherent story into it.
In conclusion,
Yeah, I just think that George is out. Spielberg could be in, especially if West Side Story wins Best Picture.
in conclusion about this episode,
Book of Boba Fett is representative of where Star Wars is at now. There's a lot of ideas and a lot of histories that it has to contend with, and it's still going through a creative struggle of direction between casual fans and more hardcore fans.
agreed.
Which one will win out? Probably casuals, but
Yes.
I wish that if it is, they would at least get some bigger creative talent to drive that force.
What's wrong with Robert Rodriguez? He's so great. Haven't you seen Spy Kids?
Haven't you seen
Star
all the
Wars-
episodes of this show that he directed?
Star Wars
That-
zombies.
The perfect example, you guys,
Use the Force.
is
Yeah.
the perfect example. Everything that people...
Okay.
You know what people complain most about this? The spin that the guy did, which was a reference to Desperado, where the guy does the spin and then shoots.
That guy needs to stop with this Desperado
But
shit.
but it's not that guy. It's Robert Rodriguez who directed the majority of the episodes of this show.
WatchAndComplain.com. Do you have a comment? Are you going to argue with Will, me, or just say Rob is a stupid head? Go for it. Put it in the comments.
Watch and Complain, filmgamer.com, 3 amazing people, and Rob.
Sexwithfurniture.com.
We told you not to mention that again. I don't do that anymore.
I have sexwithfurniture.com.
It
Oh,
was
you
a
too?
$20 URL, guys. Let's get over it.